Good day, welcome to Music Motors and welcome to something simply electric. This is the 2021 Mercedes Benz eSprinter. Now the Mercedes eSprinter is something unique in a transport sector, in the commercial sector that is, because everything's slowly starting to go a bit more electric. Be it the fact that Ford with their Transit now have a PHEV, well Mercedes are just saying, well let's just jump straight to electric, and that's exactly what they're doing with the eVito and the eSprinter. Now the eSprinter has 114 brake horsepower, 295 newton meters of torque, a top speed of question mark, because really as it's an electric vehicle you probably don't want to be doing much more than 50. Now all of this in mind, you do get a 96 mile range. If you get low and you've got rapid charge like spec'd in, that means that you can recharge from 10 to 80% in 30 minutes, which is pretty impressive. And to be fair, you will quite viably see that 96 mile range depending on your driving cycle, depending what auxiliaries you've got on, i.e. heating and heated seats and aircon and stuff like that. Now the big thing is this is a 3.5 ton capable van. It can take 774 kilograms of payload weight, but it's not cheap. It's around 52 grand before VAT, but it's a little bit ahead of its time, because realistically, you know, in 10 years time everything is going to have to be electric, so they're getting in there first. And whilst it is a bit pricey, that is before the government grant, which knocks it down quite considerably, and more so than people are getting currently with their cars. Now outside there is absolutely nothing to tell you that this is an electric Sprinter, an eSprinter, besides the fact that by the doors it says electric, and by Sprinter it's got E just before it. Except those two bits from the outside, this is a traditional Sprinter through and through. Now by that I mean that, say, the front end, it's pronounced and is with real pride, lovely design, good light cluster, and that pronounced 3-prong star going on. You get to the side profile, 16-inch wheels, and these are typical of what you're seeing throughout the Sprinter range. And to be fair, they deal with the road really, really well, and they're not a boring design. Even though it's a free wheel, you know, quite often the low end wheels looked a bit boring, and they still do in quite a lot of manufacturers. It doesnn't in a Sprinter. It's a really, really cool design. Side profile, nice little indents and kind of like styling lines to give it more of an aggressive design, as it were. And then the back, now this one being an L2, for me looks a little bit weird. I'm used to long and extra long wheelbase Sprinters. It's a design I quite like, and because this has got such a high roof, to me being a slightly shorter wheelbase, it looks a little bit funky. But by the by, that rear design is the same as you would get through any. It's nicely put together. It's got a good step on the back for getting in and out. Now this one doesn't actually have parking sensors at the back, but it does have the optional reversing camera, very handy, and is actually put on a mirror which is inside the cab, because as I'll get to in the inside, it doesn't have the typical Mercedes Benz infotainment as we've been seeing recently. This one's finished in iridium silver metallic. It's quite a cool looking colour, and from experience these sorts of colours do really well at hiding muck. But generally outside, yeah, there's not much to say. This is just a traditional Sprinter through and through, which means it's a lovely design, it's aging really, really well, and there's nothing really to complain about. Now stepping inside, initially you're like, oh yeah, this is a Sprinter that we've known for ages. Now this one doesn't have the Mercedes Benz UX infotainment spec'd in. This one has a like not even infotainment, it has a radio which does have DAB, to be fair, and you still can connect your phone to, but it doesn't offer you all the facilities that you would expect. But that doesn't mean the design and the build quality's changed on the inside. It's just something that's slightly different, because the build quality on the inside of the Sprinters these days is just unparalleled. Ford, they're getting close, but they're still not there. Fiat and PSA or MPSA or whatever they're going under now, including people like Vauxhall and Citroën and Peugeot, are literally, you know, years behind Mercedes when it comes to the interiors. There's something about getting in, and when you slam the door behind you, you just feel quality. And whilst there are bits and pieces which do fail on commercial vehicles, what you'll find is that they kind of fail on all of them, like handles or door locks and stuff like that. It's kind of the same throughout, but the inside is quiet, robust, comfortable, offers really excellent visibility. For me, it is probably the best visibility of anything in the segment. Realistically, probably the best of any commercial vehicle, even above a Vito. The Sprinter's visibility is absolutely insanely good, and if you want even more visibility, well, reversing camera, blind spot assist. You know, Mercedes Benz kind of tailor for everything. Headroom is very comfortable. You don't feel cramped in here. And genuinely, the inside is just put together so well. The only criticism I guess would be, and it's the same in any commercial vehicle, bench seats are really uncomfortable for your passengers. If you're only going to have one passenger and it's going to be like that all the time, and you don't ever think you're going to have that second person, second passenger, third person in the van, go for two captain's chairs, because genuinely having that ability to recline them that little bit more than that upright position that they generally offer is quite a big thing, and makes them considerably more comfortable. And just to note how quiet it is, I did just go over a pothole. The van soaked it up extraordinarily well, and also my ears didn't explode. Panel vans, sometimes when you hit potholes, are really noisy. Sound deadening is really good. Technology wise, I would say that everything's at your fingertips. The gear selector's at your fingertips. Your regenerative braking's at your fingertips. But there isn't really anything else on this, because everything's kind of blanked out. Fair enough. It's not a top spec van, but it does have climate control, and to be fair, there is still quite a lot of technology in that you're not going to be going in the back of anyone, because the van is going to intervene and stop you doing it. Inside wise, Mercedes just excel. Now, load capability, 774 kilograms payload weight, which is a little bit of a letdown, to be fair. You know, it's still quite reasonable, and if you're just taking big boxes, it's going to be no problem, but obviously isn't comparable to currently something like a 314 or a 315. But to be fair, there's still quite a lot of load space back there, and access to the load space is so much better than a big Transit, because honestly I fall out of those going out the side door. Even though this doesn't actually have the lowest step installed, it's still extraordinarily easy to get in and out of. Mercedes really have understood that people jump in and out of these vans on a regular basis, doing anything from, you know, couriering or, you know, just going to general jobs. Jumping in and out the back, you do your knees in a Transit, honestly, unless you option in that step, and even then it's still quite high. Whereas Mercedes, even without that option in step, this is really easy to get in and out of. The build quality is really good. Now, rear sliding doors have a tendency to fail on most commercial vehicles, to be fair. Sprinters do actually tend to do the best out of all competitor and anything in the segment within reason. Don't get me wrong, they do fail, but it seems that they fail a lot less. The sliding door actually has quite a lot of weight to it, and everything just feels quite substantial. From a load capability point of view, loads of anchoring points, and it's just a good solid big area to put stuff in, basically. Just a shame that the weight capacity isn't quite there. Performance, so as I said, 114 horsepower, 295 newton meters of torque. It's got a 96 mile range. It can recharge from 10 to 80% in 30 minutes if you've got rapid charge optioned, and obviously depends on your electricity. But the big thing is, does this still drive like a Sprinter? Because for me, Sprinter's had a huge update, like massive update, going from that previous generation to the generation we're currently in, and it was like a night and day difference of quality in every single means, including the drive. I'm pleased to say this does still drive like a Sprinter, because it does still offer that light yet kind of nimble approach to drive. Don't get me wrong, this is not by any means a sports van, but it does a really good job of just being a relaxing place to drive. The steering's well weighted, the throttle's actually really nicely, it gives you a bit of feedback, just so that when you're in economy you're not putting your foot down constantly. And the brakes, even though they're regenerating, you know what, they're not totally disconnected. They actually don't feel too far away from what you would expect in a normal Sprinter. Going around corners, obviously, because this is a little bit heavier because of the battery pack, you do feel a little bit more weight. You do feel this kind of bounding over corners a little bit more, but it still feels, from a van point of view, very, very composed and goes around corners quite nicely. That 295 newton meters of torque means that off the mark you can get away pretty quickly, but there comes a point where that starts to run out, and then you'll see your range going down quite quick, like significantly quicker than you'd want. You have to drive this pretty sensibly, to be fair. But with all that in mind, bearing in mind it is electric and it is such a big thing, it drives just like you expect a Sprinter to drive. It drives just like the current generation does, and considering it doesn't have an engine in there, it has a lot more weight, and the brakes are regenerating power as you're going along, or there is a regeneration process. You really couldn't ask for more from a performance point of view. Back roads, motorways, everything is pretty well suited, to be fair. Although, let's be honest, this is sold mainly for inner city, and it will absolutely excel there. So outside, you can't really tell the difference. This just looks like a Sprinter. It's a lovely design. It's not aging badly. It's a genuinely good look. Inside, that same standard, exceptional build quality, but make sure you option in essential things like that Mercedes Benz UX system, because otherwise you don't get things like Apple CarPlay. Whilst this one does have heated seat, electric mirrors, electric handbrake, it kind of just feels a little bit of a step behind not having that nice infotainment screen. Not the end of the world, but that would just be something a little bit nicer, but still comfortable, quiet, typical Mercedes refinement. Low capability, slightly let down, but really for inner city stuff, if you're doing multi-drop, you're going to be absolutely fine. If you're doing inner city and you need it for loads of utilities and you need to take, a ton and a half of payload weight, we're not quite there, but no doubt Mercedes-Benz aren't a million miles away from being able to offer that to you. And drive and performance, it still offers that lovely soft touch. It still offers that decent handling, fantastic visibility. It's what you expect from a Sprinter. Mercedes haven't just plonked an electric engine in and just gone, well, it's fine. They've said, look, it's clearly going to change the dynamic, but we need to make sure that this still feels just as good as normal Sprinters do. And they really have excelled in that. You could easily jump from a standard Sprinter into this, and the only difference you're going to notice is the fact that there is no engine noise. Aside from that, to me, this is just a normal Sprinter. So to summarise, I think Mercedes-Benz have understood the marketplace, and whilst the range isn't great with rapid charge capabilities, range isn't really an issue anymore. And obviously as battery technology goes on and they get smaller and engines are less juicy for using power, it's going to become so much better. You're going to be seeing 200 miles and 300 miles and 400 miles, and with rapid charge. So from an electric point of view, they just understand it. It looks like a normal van, but there's just something special going on. It's not cheap, 52 plus VAT before incentives. But again, this is something else that if you're investing into this with those incentives, if you're in a middle of, say, London, you're not paying ultra low emission zone charges, you're not paying congestion charge. Every single day you own this van, it's saving you £27.50 every single day. Every time you drive in, you're saving yourself that, so it's extra profit. Yes, I know it's a bit more money, but how long until they say absolutely no combustion engines in central London? Then what do? Mercedes-Benz are ready for it now, and genuinely, it's a fantastic job.